Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Grace Athey. I am the Assistant Director of Career Coaching and Education here at UCS, and I'm super excited to just go over some last minute tips, tricks, recommendations for attending a career fair. It snuck up on us and it's this week. It's tomorrow and Wednesday. So hopefully this is some last minute preparations for you guys. For those of you who aren't familiar with Zoom webinar, you're not going to have camera or microphone access, but I still would love to hear from you guys if you have any questions, comments. We want to make sure we give you the information that you're looking for. So feel free to use the chat or Q&A functions. We're going to keep an eye out on those just to make sure we don't miss anything. But I am also joined by Amanda, who I'm going to have introduce herself. Amanda, do you want to just give a brief intro?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be joining you this evening. My name is Amanda Woolever. I am a divisional sales manager for Team TTI over here on the Team Heart side, actually. So for any of you who have not heard of TTI yet, we are one of the largest companies you've never heard of. We own brands like Milwaukee Tools, Ryobi Tools, Heart Tools, Hoover, Dirt Devil, and a ton of different other brands. So we're primarily focused in those consumer goods, typically within the sales, manufacturing, recruiting, operations side. And we're looking to bring people into the leadership development program where we get the opportunity to help you figure out what you want to do in the future, get you a great place to start your career, and then have success. We always say you should learn the business and then grow the business. So that's our goal here at TTI. But I'm excited to get you all feeling comfortable and prepared for the career fair tomorrow or Thursday, excuse me.
Yeah, no, thank you, Amanda. I'm so glad they're able to join me tonight. I'm sure the students are really excited to get your input and hear the expertise that you have in good career fair preparation. So we're going to be hearing more from you. But everyone, and I just wanted to give you an update on maybe some of the things we're going to be covering tonight. I'm hoping to give you a ton of information, a lot of different resources and tools to help you be successful. So to start off, I'm just going to maybe give you a heads up of how you could find out about different fairs and events we have going on from our department and our office, what we have coming up so that you can take advantage of that. I'm also going to give you a brief overview of UCS, who we are, what we do, how we could be of help to you. So let me see, Amanda, you gave me a great tip. Can you see presenter mode?
Yes, we
on my
can.
screen? Okay, so let me change that. Thank you for the heads up.
Sorry, I didn't
Want
catch it earlier.
everyone to see my presenter mode, even though, I mean, there's really nothing on that. So here, let me go back over that. Okay, so here, hopefully you can see just the normal slide.
Yep.
Okay, thank you so much, Amanda. But anyways, yes, I wanted to give you all just a heads up of maybe some of the things that we're going to be covering today. I already mentioned I'm going to go over the upcoming events and fairs. One is this week, so this is some last minute prep. And what we can do at UCS to help you. And then also, obviously, the career fair is going to be a part of your own career journey. And so I want to help you get some ideas of how you could gain some self-awareness around your journey, how to set yourself up for success and gain that high impact experience down the road that you do want to achieve. I also want to give you some resources that'll help you get to that point in your career. And then I also want to allow Amanda to share some of her tips and tricks and any feedback that she has for you guys to be successful with the fair this week. I'm also going to have some time at the end of this to address any questions or comments that you guys might have. So again, just feel free to drop in the chat or Q&A any questions that you might have. But here you can see on our website how to navigate any upcoming fairs and workshops that we have. So if you haven't already seen our fair information in Handshake, that is where you're going to find that information. So on that right-hand side, you can see the workshops tab as well as the fairs tab. So make sure to take a look at that because there's a list of the employers that are going to be in attendance, and you're going to want to make sure to get an idea of who you want to talk to, how to prepare for that. We're going to go all over that information, but feel free to take a look at the news and events tab on our website so you can get all of that information. So obviously you're here because you want to be well prepared for the career fair that we have this week. So I'm going to go over 3 different categories of just different forms of prep that you can do now. Obviously, we want you to be well planned, and we also want you to be thoroughly prepared. And then we want you to practice. There's not much time to practice, but there's still time to practice. So I'm going to go over all 3 of these different categories just to get you set up for success with this upcoming career fair. So how should you plan? What does planning look like? When you are going to be attending a career fair, we want you to be aware of just the logistics. Obviously, with this being a virtual fair, it's not you having to drive somewhere or plan the bus ride or anything like that, but you need to be fully aware of where to find that attendance link. And where you're going to attend. Are you going to be in your room with your bed in your background? Are you going to have your clutter cleared? Are you going to have a lot of distractions? You're going to want to come prepared. So knowing who's going to be in attendance, who are some of those top employers that you want to see and be in conversation with? And then what positions are you interested in? All of those things are really important keys and notes to keep track of. You also want to be flexible. Obviously, it is in a virtual space. Technology is involved. So just make sure that you're also prepared in that sense of having your camera accessible, having your audio working. All of those things may seem like very minor details, but they're really crucial to your success in any conversations you're going to be having with employers. So moving on, that's how you can have a plan. Be sure to take action in some of those things. But how can you prepare? What is a preparation for a career fair supposed to look like? We are wanting you to have a very impressionable and successful first impression, very positive impression with these employers. So on the note of where you're going to be doing this, you want to make sure that your Wi-Fi is working and well connected. You want to make sure your equipment's working. Some of these things may just seem so mundane, but they're really important because you don't want to be panicking last minute when you're realizing that some of these things aren't working. It's highly recommended for you to have a virtual background or even utilizing like the blurred background or something. I've often heard from recruiters in terms of their feedback, and Amanda, maybe you can speak to this, but I've often heard of there being a lot of distracting backgrounds with students' rooms. Sometimes they have just a lot of clutter or things that are very distracting in their background. So make sure you eliminate any of those possibilities. Also very important to dress appropriately. Obviously, this isn't going to be the traditional career fair where it's in person and we want you to be in a suit and a tie and making that very dapper first impression, but it's still very crucial for you to be professionally dressed and looking all ready to go for your career. So make sure that you have something along those lines that you can utilize. And then last, I want to recommend for you to prioritize your employers of interest. Obviously, if you have limited time, and we have quite a list of amazing employers that are going to be in attendance, it's really important for you to have maybe a top 3, 4, 5 employers selected for yourself so you know who is of your top interest to talk to. Because obviously you're going to have ample opportunity to talk to a lot of different ones, but you want to set yourself up for success as well. So with that in mind, you want to know a little bit about them. You want to be prepared in the sense of not just having to pop in that room and say, hey, tell me a little bit more about yourself. What does your company do? That's not going to make a positive impression with this employer. So once you have those top few employers picked out, definitely do a little bit of research and prep behind the scenes just so you're prepared.
I'd love to jump in there as well. I would say on top of knowing about the role, it's great to know about like what that recruiter is looking for in terms of position. So on there, it should say if there's any jobs linked to like the actual career fair, if we've posted any things like that. Make sure you're paying attention to that because you might be wasting your time. And like we said, we need to prioritize your time. So if you know you want to talk to, a certain company because you really like that company, but if you want to do engineering and the recruiter there is for sales, might not be the best option of your time. So pay more attention, not just to the actual name of the company. Make sure you're paying attention to the actual job as well. I know that's something I face. I'm on our sales management, recruiting, HR, all of those types of side of the business. So when I have engineers come in, I'm just not the best resource for them. So just keep that in mind too.
Yeah, no, that's really great advice and recommendations. Thank you for that, Amanda. So I think that kind of wraps up different steps you can take right now to make sure that you're thoroughly prepared for the virtual fair this week. But I'm going to go ahead and transition to that practice component. This is another very crucial component that when I mentioned, you may not have even known what I meant by practice. Like, oh, Grace, how can I practice having a career fair on my own? I'm going to go over a little bit more about what that's going to look like. So when I say practice, I mean, I'm wanting you to prepare and be very familiar and even confident in how you're going to discuss different things about yourself with these employers. It's going to be really crucial for you to utilize what we call an elevator pitch. Which is essentially, I'm going to explain a little bit more in a little bit here in more detail, but essentially you need to be fully confident and even prepared in having a very short synopsis summary of who you are and be confident in having that brief conversation with a lot of different employers because you're not going to have a lot of time, and that's why it's important to practice so that you are covering everything that you want to in that short amount of time. It's also very important for you to take the time now to supplement that research of who you're wanting to see, knowing a little bit about who they are and what they do, what opportunities they might have available. It's also crucial for you to now practice or even formulate some questions you have for the employers, like around maybe what they do to get more context of recommendations that they might have for you to get into that field. Formulate those questions now and practice them just so that when you're given that opportunity, you don't stumble or forget things. Definitely maybe have a notebook to reference on the side. Whatever tools or tricks would be helpful for you, definitely have that prepared and ready to go. Also, it's really crucial for you to have something available to you throughout the fair to take notes with, because obviously these are relationships and connections that you're building. It's not just a waste or just solely finding out what opportunities are available. They're going to be giving you valuable information. You want to keep track of who you're even talking to, their contact information, all of those things that you may need to follow up on. You're going to want to keep notes of all of those different things so that you stay organized and don't lose track of some of those little details. So have something available for you in that sense. And to that note, asking for contact information to follow up. This is really crucial because it's just going to allow you to take everything to the next step in setting you up for success. So when you ask for that contact information, just make sure that you're taking note of that so that you don't lose it. And then you can always inquire about next steps or get a referral or whatever that looks like. So practice, 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 and be confident about it. All right, so then I'm going to touch on this anatomy of a pitch. For those of you who don't know what an elevator pitch is, I wanted to take this time as an opportunity to explain to you what that even is so that you can utilize that this week. So an elevator pitch is essentially a brief synopsis of who you are, what you do, what you're good at, and why you're interested in who you're talking to. That's a lot of things to incorporate into just a couple minute spiel. So make sure that you're touching on a few of these things: your name, your year, your major, maybe some things that you've done in the past that you think would be relevant for the employer to know about you. What leadership roles, what internship experiences, what academic projects, all of those things may correlate to this employer and the valuable skills and experience you have. So make sure that you're touching on that. Maybe if you don't, because you don't have a lot of time, not going into detail about all of them, but maybe picking one or two key experiences that you think would be ideal for the employer to know about you. And then what do you want to do? What are your goals? What are your aspirations? What is the correlation between what you've done in the past and what you want to work towards? Why do you want to talk with this employer? Just enlighten them with maybe some of those goals and aspirations you have for yourself so that they also know how they could maybe help set you up for success. And then lastly, asking those questions, making sure that you've done your research and incorporating some of that into any questions that you might have for the employer, because this is your time to learn more about the opportunities that they have, if it would be a good fit for you and if it would set you up for success down the road. So that's a little bit about the elevator pitch. Again, feel free to let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to drop them in the chat or the Q&A. But this is a crucial part to that career fair and you being successful. So here I have just a couple different examples. I'm going to go ahead and read each one of these. And Amanda, feel free to chime in after I read these with just maybe your feedback or thoughts on if you think it's positive, negative, room for improvement, things like that. Just to give you guys as students a context and examples of maybe how you could formulate your own if you don't already have one created. So that first one, hi, I'm Mary. Thanks for coming to the fair today. I am graduating in May with a degree in management and society, and I am interested in your management and development program I saw posted on Handshake. I think it fits well with the internship in human resources I did last summer, as well as activities like training volunteers with the local literacy tutoring program I've been involved with here at Carolina. Can you tell me more about it? Amanda, how do you feel about that pitch?
Yeah, absolutely. I like it. It's clear and to the point, and you can tell well thought out. I think it gives me all the information I need, but without it taking a ton of time either. So then you can get into more of the like meat of what you want to discuss. So I like that it's specific and with a purpose is the big thing that stands out to me on that one.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that this hopefully gives you an idea and context of maybe a couple different examples of experiences or roles that you can incorporate into your own elevator pitch. And then that question at the end, it kind of puts it back on that employer of a way that you could get additional information. So this next one, I'm going to go ahead and read, and it's a little bit different, and then we'll build off of it from there. All right, let me move this. It says, hi, I'm Joe. I'm an undeclared sophomore, and right now I'm just trying to learn more about the type of opportunities available when I graduate. I'm interested in working with people and enjoy being creative. So when I saw that you have a marketing internship, I wanted to come by and introduce myself. Could you tell me more about the position and what kind of experiences you're looking for in candidates? Amanda,
Yeah.
thoughts?
I like this one too. I think it's obviously like a little bit less specific than the other one, but I do think it's still very open-ended, which is important and like there to learn while also showing that you did some of your research. So a little bit less decided, a little bit less pointed with like questions and things like that, but I do still think it's a solid option, especially if you are on the younger side in your career as in terms of your college career as well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. This one is a little bit different. And for maybe some of you who you feel like you don't have a lot of different previous roles or experiences that you can touch on or incorporate into your pitch, this is maybe an option for you in terms of selling those interests that you have and correlating them to that individual that you're speaking with so that they see the correlation between the two. So hopefully this gives you some context of maybe what you can formulate for yourself. Obviously, wouldn't recommend copying these or just using these. Obviously, this is just meant to be an example, help get your brain going, see what you can come up with and formulate for yourself and make it your own. All right, so I'm going to take this time now for Amanda to maybe, even before we just jump into any of the questions that I have, feel free to maybe comment or expand on maybe anything that I've mentioned if you want to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a big thing that I would point out is even though it is virtual, try to treat it like it is in person. So I really liked what you were saying earlier about setting yourself up for success and having that plan. At the same time, if it's between you not coming to the career fair because you didn't get to like set aside the time that you want to, and not, we'd rather you still come to the career fair. We'd rather you still come to learn. I think that typically on this handshake platform, at least for what we do, is we set up group ones and we set up individual ones. So if you do feel like you are maybe not as confident and you want to genuinely learn more, maybe go to one of the group ones instead of just the individual ones, and then you might not have to have as much of that pitch. However, I will say I want to make sure I'm in sales, right? I'm in recruiting. That's a lot of sales too. In my opinion, it's selling you on taking our job versus another one. So with that in mind, we do want to cater our pitches to you too, to make sure that we're able to make it something that you want to know too. So on top of that, I do encourage you to ensure that you do understand like what you're looking for, have kind of at least those basic pieces of what you're studying, what you want to do in the future, what you're looking for, even from coming to this career fair, and going from there. And same thing with like this space. We'd prefer to have your cameras on. We all go crazy just sitting behind these screens like we do in our modern world right now. So the more engagement we can have, the better. But at the end of the day, like don't stress yourself out if you have to do it from your room and you know, your digital background is really giving you a hard time. For sure preferred, but not the end of the world. But just be cognizant of what's in your background, I think is the best way to put it.
Yeah, no, I think that's really great. Comments that you added there, I completely agree. So yeah, again, I just want to remind everyone there is the chat and Q&A feature. So if there are questions or comments that you want us to tap into, let us know. But Amanda, why don't we go ahead and just jump right into some of the questions that I have. The first one being, what makes a student stand out at career fair?
Absolutely. I think it's kind of that well-rounded approach to what we were honestly just talking about. So really coming prepared, knowing who you want to talk to, and coming like dressed the part, dressed for the job you want, right? I'm not saying it has to be 1,000% suit and ties by any means. Obviously follow the direction of the school or the industry that you're in, but more of that polish and being ready to provide your resume and things like that could be asked for. So coming prepared with those great resources and then having that engaging conversation. A lot of us recruiters, we talk all day long. So I would expect that you're going to get some questions asked. I would not expect just to be talked to, be ready to talk with them as well.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's really great recommendations that you have there. We did have a question come in, Amanda. This student said that they have a very limited time window to attend. They're not going to be able to attend the whole event. So they're wondering if they have time to speak with people from 1 to 2, if an hour is even enough time. So I'm going to speak to this first, and then Amanda, feel free to chime in. Yes, an hour would be great. Even if it's not the full amount of time, we would love for you to attend. Obviously, this is to benefit you and for you to gain as much insight and connections with opportunities that are out there. And for it being, the student mentioned it being for the pre-business passport requirement. Yes, to my understanding, that would meet the attendance requirement. I wanted to make sure to address that as well. But Amanda, any comments on an hour being a sufficient amount of time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is virtual, so hopefully maybe you could even find a little bit more if there's a time in between, you know, some of your classes or your job or whatever it is that's preventing you from attending the whole time. Again, I think it goes back to that pre-planning and just making sure you're prioritizing the top people you want to talk to. And then a couple other tips of advice: maybe you stay out of the group sessions and go to more of those individual one-on-one sessions. They're shorter time blocks, and then that'll also help you be a little bit more impactful cycle versus, hearing a pitch and going from there and then deciding like maybe that isn't what you want to do or whatever else it might be. So I encourage you to do those individual ones. Sign up now and commit to the time that you do have, but make the biggest impact out of the time you have. And if there's anyone that you feel like you want to connect with more, always reach out, look on Handshake. I know Handshake is a great resource that Chapel Hill uses that you can get in and look at the job. So maybe if you didn't get to talk to somebody, if they have a job posted on Handshake, that's a great way to go about it too.
Yeah, I completely agree. Thank you. And there was another message that came in through the chat. Does this Zoom, I'm assuming you're referring to this Zoom specifically, complete one of the requirements for the passport? Yes, it does. That attendance is going to be pulled. So to my understanding, you should be all set in that sense, to maybe check one thing off of that list. So yeah, the Zoom should count towards that. Amanda, I'm gonna move on to the next question. Are there any particular skill deficiencies that you have identified consistently in interns or new hires, whether they be interpersonal or hard skills?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the two first ones that come to my mind are problem solving and communication. So you've been students your whole life. You're used to getting that really great hands-on, education piece where people are laying out exactly what you need to do to get that A in their class, to get that B in their class, or whatever you see as success. Jobs are definitely a little bit different. Internships are very different as well. You have to be able to solve the problems and take the initiative to step up and get the job done. Even when everything might not be clearly laid out on a syllabus that says, this is your due date, this is what equals an A, this is what equals a B, so on and so forth. So taking that initiative and being a problem solver is a huge skill set that I see students can sometimes struggle with when first coming into those internships or full-time jobs. The second piece is communication. Email is a huge thing, or Slack or whatever else is a big form of communication in the workforce. And I think that students can be a little bit slack on checking their emails sometimes. So ensuring that you're taking control, you're organizing your communication styles and how you manage your inbox and things like that. And you're being proactive with it as well to ensure that you're effectively communicating and remembering, especially in an internship, basically every day is an interview. What you say is super important, and what you don't say is also super important. So staying on top of those conversations is going to be huge.
Yes, I love the email comment that you made, because oftentimes, especially in today's day and age, some people that is their strength, some people that is not their strength.
Right.
So for those of you who maybe fit into that category and that may not be one of your strengths, definitely keep that in mind. You heard it from a recruiter who's in this field and has very valuable expertise. So take her recommendations and find a solution to be more organized and keeping track on things in your email. One question came through that I would like to address. It is, what is our YouTube page for those of you who want to find this video once it's uploaded after tonight, as well as any other videos? It is University Career Services. It's on YouTube. We have a lot of wonderful workshops, webinars, all on there. So feel free to take a look. And then another question that came in is, on a lot of the sessions, it says senior to sophomore classes. Are there any sessions that freshmen can go to? I'll speak to this, and then Amanda, feel free to chime in if you are interested in or have experience. Yes, there are definitely sessions that freshmen can go to. And even my recommendation would be to, even if you aren't an upperclassman and definitely don't feel like you can't attend some of those upperclassmen sessions, because ultimately it's still going to be very valuable expertise and information for you to gain, and connections, just knowing who people are, what they're doing, where they're at. But there are also going to be sessions for freshmen as well, but don't feel like you're limited to attending very specific sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. Even if it says like internships, it's preferred sophomores or juniors. There is reason behind that a lot of times. Like, I know my company, we like to bring you into the internship the year before you graduate. So that way, hopefully, if you do a great job, we can offer you a full-time position upon graduation. So can be a little bit more challenging to retain you if it's multiple years out for sure. But we also want you to learn a lot in your classes that you're taking and continuing to develop. However, I think it is great to get your name out there. Maybe it's something that if they say, hey, unfortunately, that's not something we can accommodate. Great. Hey, can I connect on LinkedIn? I'd love to stay in touch in the future. You're still getting your name out there. And especially if you're, repeat every semester, you're coming up and introducing yourself. It's going to go a long way and show that you are persistent in that as well.
Yeah, I completely agree, Roderick. Thank you for sharing that YouTube channel link in the chat. But one more thing that I want to add to that freshman question compared to upperclassmen. I actually received feedback from a different recruiter last week who said that due to their own company's requirements for interns, they only hire upperclassmen for their internships, but they had many conversations with lowerclassmen, and those who sought this company and this recruiter out even during their underclassmen years and maintained that connection and just engaged in conversation with them every so often, that recruiter actually sought them back out once they did become an upperclassman for any opportunities that were available at that time. So that just goes to show that there is a lot of value behind still engaging in a lot of these conversations with recruiters, even if they're looking for more of those upperclassmen, just so that you have this network and connections made.
Absolutely.
All right, moving on. What can students do now to better prepare themselves for a job or internship?
I think a big thing is applying yourself in what you currently are doing. I know as somebody who does a lot of hiring, I like to look for proven success. So not only are you going to a great school, but are you applying yourself and maintaining a great GPA, or at least a pretty good GPA, or whatever your grade is, right? If you're somebody who's involved in student organizations, are you a participant? Are you an active member that's really taking the lead and trying to get involved in as many ways as they can? Same thing, if you are working a job, are you staying in that same job, or are you promoting even within that company? You go from, a bar back to a server to a, manager of that restaurant or whatever else it might be. So really that proven track record and success is going to tell me that you are doing, that you're going to continue to have that success. So I encourage you to apply yourself and think about those transferable skills that you're going to get in each thing that you're doing if you really apply yourself to it.
Great advice. And then to maybe tag on to that, what are some changes to the workplace since the pandemic? What does that space look like? How should students navigate that?
Yeah, I think that is very industry specific, even state specific. I can't think it can definitely be a challenge. I think that if one thing that I've noticed from you all's perspective, where you are still students, is that I think that we've almost gotten a little bit more comfortable with maybe not everyone's going to be able to have an internship, right? Maybe there's other things that you can gain those skills. So whether, once again, just applying yourself, it doesn't have to just be an internship, is going to make a big difference. And then as far as COVID also opened a lot of doors for this type of stuff, right? The virtual things that we can do and things like that. So I think that maybe even this could give you another opportunity to get even more involved in different things. I have talked to a ton of students, hired a ton of students who, when they got shut down and they were super bummed that they didn't really get to be on their college campus and things like that, which hopefully were primarily moved on from that. They started picking up social media advertising for the local boutiques in their area, or the yoga studios, or whatever else it might be. So I encourage you just to continue getting involved and see what you can learn from each of those positions.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that sometimes students can get so stuck in the mindset of it having to be experience only found through an internship, but this is just a reminder to everyone that you can gain a lot of really valuable experiences, especially in today's day and age when some things are still very much virtual. You can tap into a lot of different forms of experiential learning, clubs, orgs, volunteerism, even professional associations or organizations, different certifications. All of those things vary per industry, but try to be creative as much as you can to get yourself into that workplace. So the next question is, how can students market themselves in this highly variable environment? Which is a very good question.
Yeah, great question. That's a tough one. I think that consistency, and honestly, even transparency. I think that one thing that, if you all have heard the phrase, the great resignation is upon us right now, and we're all experiencing it. I think in just about every industry and at every level. So I think that if you can show even like loyalty or like that want to pursue something and even maybe stay and grow with a company, I think that that's going to be a huge thing, because I know that's what a lot of us are looking for right now in this time of so many transitions, for better and for worse, right? And so I think then another thing is, I think that understanding that like you might have an idea of what your first role out of school is going to be, and definitely stick to your guns in certain senses or in certain ones. But I think that also be open to other opportunities as long as you think you'd have success in them. I think it's a great thing to pursue, even if it doesn't fit every single one of the boxes that you want to check. Is it maybe you have to sacrifice a little bit on salary, but you're getting to work with really great people in a location that you want to be in and in a role that you want to do. Or maybe flip it, right? Maybe it's not the exact title you want, but it's a great salary in the perfect location, or there's a lot of room for upward mobility, or whatever you're seeking. I think identify what your main things that you want, and then go after those positions. And if you're still struggling to find that, then you want to kind of check back in with yourself and see where you're lacking in those skill sets that are going to make you somebody who can get as many of their boxes checked as possible. So I think that a second thing is just being prepared. I truly think I go back to the age old quote, which is like, if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. So I think it's also identifying what your strengths are and what you're truly going to bring to the table and showcasing that in those conversations.
Yeah, Amanda, thank you for being willing to tackle that very loaded, difficult question. There's a lot of information that can go into that, and I completely agree with your answer. I think those are great recommendations. I think just from the career services component, I would recommend for you to fully rely on your career documents, that resume, that cover letter, going the extra mile in both of those documents to really market yourself and sell yourself and make that positive impression, even just from that aspect. Because ultimately, depending on how you're pursuing this opportunity, you're having to rely on those documents to make that first impression with the employer. And you want it to be a positive one. So rely on us to help you build out those documents for yourself so that those are really solid and so that you're setting yourself up for success. That was just a little something that I wanted to add in there. I did have
to add on to that too. I think it should be a very like fluid document that you're constantly editing. Somebody different. Now, you don't want to get information overload with too many opinions, but at the same time, I do think that it should be something that you're constantly revising, constantly revisiting to make it stronger, because people are going to have different opinions. And even if you can just get a couple of those those action words changed out to be even stronger to really demonstrate what you bring to the table, it's going to go a long way. So I encourage you to always be looking at it for sure.
Yes, I completely agree. I'm glad to hear from you as well that that is your advice. That's the same advice that we provide. For those of you who maybe need a refresher on different action words to incorporate into your documents, feel free to take a look at our career readiness workbook on our website. There's a lot of helpful tools and resources there for both the resume and the cover letter so that you can be changing that out, updating it, personalizing it, and allowing it to be an ever-changing document. But if you need more context on any of those things, feel free to see me. You can schedule an appointment or our career peers, or even utilize some of the resources on our website as well. One of the questions in the Q&A was saying, I am new to this platform and Handshake. Should I be filling out a form to speak with specific recruiters before the fair? Or is there no paperwork necessary? If there is, where can I find that? Also, if I'm not interested with speaking with anyone specific, can I only join the group sessions? There's no paperwork needed from you. If anything, if you do want to register for the event, you can do that on Handshake. But there aren't any forms or paperwork or anything that you need to fill out. If there aren't any specific employers or recruiters that you want to speak with, you can definitely just join the group sessions and just hear what they have to say. But I would definitely recommend I know I already touched on this a little bit, but I would definitely recommend looking on Handshake to see that list of employers that are going to be in attendance, to see if there are any that would be of top interest to you, so that you can prepare a little bit of why you're interested in those employers and how you can set yourself up for success, advertise yourself to those employers. So yeah, that is that question. So Amanda, another one. I know I'm just throwing these questions at you and I love getting your input. So the next one is, how much does GPA matter in hiring decisions? This is a very commonly asked question.
Yeah, great question. I think the answer is it depends. I think, again, everyone's going to have different opinions on that. And it might even depend on the industry you're going into, the type of job you're looking for, those types of things. I think this is a pretty broad one. So like a broad group of students that we have on here. So with that in mind, like I do want to mention that like I think that GPA matters more to some companies than others. My company, technically, for this position I'm hiring for, does not have a GPA requirement. However, it is something that I think it's something that matters, but it's not the only thing that matters. I think it's a holistic thing that we want to look at. But if I'm on the fence and maybe I like really can't decide if I want to move you on to that next round of interviews or hire you, and then on top of that, then you have a little bit of a lower GPA in my eyes. To me, it's that proven track record of success and where you've applied yourself, right? It's not enough to just get your degree. Where can you apply yourself and also do a great job within that piece of it too? So I think it honestly is going to depend on what you're applying for. I think there's other things that might matter more, but it's definitely something that like I would be cognizant of it while you still can. As a student, maybe if you're a little bit of an underclassman versus an upperclassman for sure, and take pride in it. But I don't think it's the end all be all. I think the big thing too is having the narrative to talk about what your GPA is and why, right? Like when I ask a student, hey, what's your GPA or what was your GPA when you graduated? If it is lower, like I've heard a lot of people be like, just say it, right? They'll just say their number. But if you're like, you know, hey, I started out as a blah, blah, blah major. I struggled with it. I then changed and I've been able to really work to get my GPA up to a blank. That's going to make a huge difference. So having that narrative and kind of that reason behind it without just making excuses, I think goes a long way versus just saying it the way it is. Now, if you have a great GPA, advertise it, put it at the top of your resume, make sure people know it. But be prepared for that conversation of your GPA. And if you feel like you have a little bit of a reason for it, don't be afraid to speak to it either. We want to see you as well-rounded people.
Great comments. I'm sure that the students are really appreciative of hearing a recruiter's perspective. I know that we advise students on this GPA topic, and sometimes it's helpful to get that recruiter's perspective. One question came into the chat. I will address that in just 1 second, but kind of on the same topic of GPA mattering in hiring decisions. Another really common question is, how much does the academic major matter to recruiters?
Yeah, I think again, it depends. I think for those really technical roles, right? Like maybe in engineering, obviously, like in nursing, some of those that require very specific prerequisites are going to be super important. However, you know, I'm personally a hiring for sales, management, marketing, all of those types of roles. So it can be a little bit more broad. Again, if you can speak to it and kind of tell me that narrative behind it. So I think we pick our majors at a very young age. And I think it can be really challenging to then, if you don't want to do that, do you then start over? Is that going to mean classes? Is that going to mean more of a financial commitment? Is that going to mean delaying my career? I think, again, just the more you can talk about it, and I would have a purpose, right? Like if I see, you know, if I'm hiring for a sales position and somebody who was pre-veterinary like studies applied, I'm going to really want to dig in and understand like how the heck they got from that being their major to now applying to my job. So I would be prepared if you don't feel like your major does really align with that. Make sure you're still able to speak to like why and what you've learned throughout those classes that would make you an asset for their company.
Yeah, I completely agree. Thank you for sharing. And one of the questions that came in via chat as well as Q&A was in the topic of personal websites compared to utilizing the Handshake and LinkedIn profile platform. My just expertise and input on this matter is that I think it really depends on the field or industry that you're pursuing. If it's really more so that creative outlet, creative industry where they're fulfilling some of those more creative roles where they would find that website valuable to then turn to get some of that portfolio, what has been some of your previous work, what have been some of your previous roles and experiences. So there's a time and a place for a personal website compared to the more traditional platforms of Handshake and LinkedIn. But just to add to that, I still recommend utilizing Handshake and LinkedIn platforms just because there's so much more to them than just having your profile and information uploaded onto them. There are job and internship boards, there are networking platforms where you can build out connections. So if you were to have a personal website, I think that's a perfect supplemental tool to utilizing some of those platforms. Amanda, do you want to add anything to that?
I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think it's a good supplemental resource. I think a big thing to remember too is that we will look, so make sure it's appropriate or does apply to what you are applying for. If you're going for a sales role, maybe I don't necessarily need to see your poetry, things like that. So just keep those in mind. I think that is going to be very industry specific.
Yeah, I completely agree. Even though I would love to look at everyone's poetry, maybe you do or don't want to look at everyone's poetry. There's a time and a place.
I don't want to because I get sucked down the rabbit hole and don't get other things done.
Sure. Yeah. So another really big question that we're often asked is how appropriate is it for students to reach out to recruiters on LinkedIn? What does that look like for you? What recommendations do you have?
Yeah, I think for the most part, I would say it's encouraged if done in the right way. So if you're reaching out to make a connection and are interested in a role that, we're looking for, I think that's great. As long as you kind of I recommend as a personal piece of advice would be try to find a connection on their resume, on their profile, whether it's a person that can introduce you or just another warm way to get into their inbox. I can think about a time that a candidate reached out to me and was like, "Hey, Amanda, I noticed you also live in North Carolina. What a great state to be in. Anyways, I'm interested in the X, Y, and Z position." I think that it's a great way to build that connection for sure. What I don't recommend doing is emailing or message them, trying to connect with them and saying, "Hey, I applied to this job 6 months ago. How come I haven't heard anything?" Right? And things like that. I think it is great. I think we all have LinkedIn usually for that reason. Some people are more particular than others, but also again, make sure that you are doing your due diligence and ensuring that it's the right person to reach out to. If you email me because my profile says recruiter beside it for TTI and you are an engineering major, I'm not going to be able to help you, right? So do that due diligence and figure out maybe more of who the hiring manager would be or who's more involved in those specific things that you're looking for.
Perfect. And then maybe to take it a step further, what is your input on students requesting informational interviews, especially from the recruiter's perspective? Is that something that you even follow through with? Is that something that you frown upon, like seeing? What's your thoughts?
I mean, I truthfully haven't seen that a ton. I personally would love it. I like the initiative. And being in recruiting, my job is to get the best and the brightest people onto my team. And that really would stand out to me. But I can't speak for every single recruiter. That's just my perspective, especially since I haven't really seen that before.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. And any advice you would give a first year student who maybe is a little too early on for some of these more formal experiences around an internship, but do you have any advice you would give a first year student interested in TTI?
Yeah, great question. I would say start setting yourself up to be the no-brainer candidate when it comes to a little bit more of that time for it. So get involved in those student organizations, get involved in jobs off campus, get involved in different things that you can and really apply yourself to set yourself up. You have time on your side, which most students do not when it comes to how long you still have in your career. So I think that's a huge piece. I think number two is it's not too early to reach out by any means, as long as you're doing it in the right ways and staying in that polished and professional communication, I think is a big thing. So I think that my response would be like, the sooner the better, but use this time since it is on your side to make yourself that standout shoe-in candidate.
Perfect. And then one last question I have for you, Amanda, is any guidance you would provide to students who are looking for an internship opportunity to translate into a long-term career?
Absolutely. I would say treat the internship, treat every day like an interview. Show the best version of yourself that you can, and really take those initiatives. We're going to want people who are reliable, go-getters, take the initiative, and don't wait to be told exactly how to do things. So I think that the big thing is show up every day, and be your best self. In my current job, am I every single day my tip-top best person? Absolutely not. Don't get me wrong. I strive to be, but is that realistic? No. However, on those days where I am interviewing for that promotion or working with my boss and really wanting to showcase who I am as a leader, I'm going to make sure I'm coming in and I'm on the top of my game, right? So I think that's a big thing. And then remember that like what you do, what you say, all of that is going to create a lasting impression. Again, to pull a quote, I apparently don't have any of my own creative thoughts. I have to pull from other people. But with that being said, it's like, what you do is who you are. So just remember that as you go into every day of your internship. If they say, hey, we prefer for you to get here at 8, but we're not strict about it, and you show up every day at 9, it's going to be ingrained in their head that you are somebody who, maybe shows up a little bit later than what's expected, or maybe is going to stretch that boundary and things like that. So just remember what you do is who you are, and just keep that in mind and bring your best self to that internship for sure. But it's also a great time for you to assess if you would want to do be with that company in the long run as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. And ultimately, if worst case scenario, after you get done with that internship and you're like, this actually isn't what I thought it was going to be, like this type of work, I don't want to go this direction anymore. Ultimately, that's a pro too. I mean, that's a plus. That's essentially what the internship is meant to do. So don't be discouraged or turned off by if you do start to discover some of those things. Those are great things as well, because they can translate into what to do next, or where to go from there. So that is all of the questions that I have for you, Amanda. We don't have any more questions in the chat or the Q&A. If anyone has any last minute questions, feel free to let us know, but hopefully that gives everyone some context of what to expect in these next couple of days as you're going to be attending the fairs. Hopefully you know what to do once you're done here tonight. Hopefully you have a list of things that you can do to be prepared and equipped to be successful over these next couple of days. Also, I just want to remind everyone to go to Handshake. All of the career fair information is under that events page that I showed you at the beginning. Feel free to register. You can also follow the link that Stephanie shared in the chat, just to give you some direction or point of contact. And it looks like Amanda also provided you guys with her contact info, which is super helpful.
Yes, thank you for letting me be a part of it. Good luck over these
Yes.
next couple of days, and excited to hopefully talk to you in our booth.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for just attending and sharing your expertise. Everyone, I want to ask you to take a moment to complete this survey. Feel free to take a snap picture of the QR code. I'm also sending a link in the chat right now to the survey. If you could follow that link and just complete that survey, that would be really valuable to us. And then lastly, for those of you who have stayed on, I have a valuable tidbit of information that might be of value to you, but I just wanted to give a heads up and share this information that we are hiring in our office at UCS. We're looking to hire some career peers, and the applications do close soon. So if this is something that is of interest to you, or you think that this would really help set you up for success with your future careers and goals, feel free to take a look at this, take a snapshot of the QR code. You can also apply on Handshake as well, but I just wanted to share this information. And then that is all that I have for you guys. Thank you so much for being in attendance. Hopefully this information was valuable to you. Feel free to stick around if you have any other questions, but I hope you all have a good night, and I will see you guys at the career fair.